Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Dev Marketer channel. We are finishing up our series on all of the new features that came to Laravel 5.4. Now this is going to be the video where we talk about Markdown emails, and this is actually a really cool feature that I've been excited about more than many of the other features, and that's because emails are inherently hard. I don't know how much you guys have experience with working with emails, but emails are always one of those things that are just a pain in the ass. Normally when you send emails, you're going to usually you hire somebody to do an email for you and you pay all this money for this email, and then it's like so hard to customize, and there's all this inline styles to worry about. There's all this stuff that just basically editing the content inside of an email just becomes so hard. And it always, with me, like when I was working before on a large team, it was actually really hard because there were only a few people on the team that really could comprehend editing emails enough to actually customize them, and it was just a big pain. And so what I love about Markdown emails in Laravel is that now we can use a universal, easy to use, like content rich text editor basically to customize the look of, or at least the content of the emails. You still need some CSS to change the look of them, but Laravel does ship with a great theme out of the box that's generic, that you can customize to your company really easily. And if you always want to have a more custom option, you can always change the theme and have all the emails now send via that theme and only customize it with Markdown. So that's one of the things that's just so nice about Markdown emails in Laravel. So in 5.3, we had the introduction of a new way to send email, and that was using the Mailables class. If you're not familiar with Mailables, this is actually a really big improvement from what we had in 5.2. So if you followed some of my, like the How to Build a Blog series in 5.2, it's actually much different now. So I'm going to go through that and kind of cover Mailables a little bit and then go into Markdown as well and just kind of show you guys the new and improved way to send emails in Laravel. But the way it basically works is we create this class called a Mailables class. Inside of that class is where we customize how we actually want to generate and render the email. We can point it to a view, like a view like we would generate a normal web page. We can point it to a view. We can customize some of the headers. We can pull in certain objects and just do whatever we want to configure the email. And all of that logic happens inside the Mailables class. And then in our controllers, we just tell it to send an email via that Mailables class, which really cleans up the code, especially in the controllers, because now we don't have all that mail logic in our controllers. The mail logic is in the Mailables class, and then all the view logic is in a view that the Mailable points to. And then the controller just, if it wants to send that email, all it does is just reference that Mailables class, and everything else is done behind the scenes. It really cleans up the code. It makes it really easy to work with. So let's go ahead, and in this video we're going to show you guys how to send an email using Markdown, and we'll customize the content using Markdown. You'll see how easy that is, and then also a little bit how to work with the Mailables. The last video that we'll look at tomorrow will be the video that we actually tie this into kind of a real life application. So instead of pressing a button to send an email, we'll actually have emails automatically sent when certain events occur. And that kind of finishes up the 5.4 new features series, because the last feature that I haven't covered yet is going to be eloquent events and how to tie them to our event classes. And so I'll talk to you guys about how to tie in those events, and that way we can send an email whenever a new user event is generated. So for this video, we'll create the beginning of our new user email, but we'll manually send it, but you'll see at least how it works. And then the next video, we'll actually talk about automating it using events. So let's go into our project. We're going to tie into the project that we did in the last video. So if you want to go back and watch that video, we talked about Laravel Dusk. And so we use this new application called Dusk. If I can find it right here. We need a new Laravel application called Dusk. But if you wanted to generate this for today's video, all you need to do is run a Laravel new and then pull your npm install in. And then you're going to want to do PHP artisan make auth. And that's all we did, okay? So we have a basic authentication framework in there, and that's it. No customization, no nothing. So if you wanted to catch up today, you could just run Laravel new. And then the name of your app, and then you would run PHP artisan make auth inside of that application, and that would run this authentication scaffolding. Make sure you do your migrations, and that's it. So it's just a basic authentication. So let's go ahead and just tie this in. So let's get into our Dusk. And inside of Dusk, let's just open it up in the text editor. And let's start by configuring our email. So we need to get our emails all configured before we can do anything. And let's show you guys how to do that. The first step that I like to do is, well, let's go to our config and we'll go to config mail. And inside of mail, this is where all the configuration for mail happens. But you'll notice as you go down, a lot of these are actually set up as env files. So I recommend using your .env file to configure most of these, but we'll customize a few of them by hard coding them. The first one that I like to, I usually just hard code is our address. So because it's not in there by default, but we can actually customize it. Let's just pull in mail from address and mail from name, and we'll just put that into our env file. The rest of this is already in the env file and we can customize, all right? So let's just come down to our env file. You can see down here, these are all of the mail customizations, but let's add mail from address and then mail from name. And these are two that just aren't in here yet. And we'll customize those. So for mail from address, let's do no reply, add example.com just for today's video. And then for the from name, we'll just say Dusk app. We'll just call this app the Dusk. Perfect. Okay, so now what we need to do is just configure our actual outgoing email server. And there's lots of different ways to do this. You might use Amazon SES, you might use Spark Post, you might use Mailgun, whatever email service provider you want to use, it's all up to you. You would normally just come in here, choose your driver. There might be a driver for whatever provider you're using if it's an API type driver like Amazon SES or Spark Post. Or you might just use the SMTP protocol. Whatever you want to use, you would just choose the driver, you would choose your host, port, your username, password, and set an encryption. And then you'd be able to send email using the same unified interface throughout Laravel, which is awesome. And that way all of your mailables can automatically send email without you really doing much configuration other than this right here. This is the only configuration needed. Now for today's video, because we're in development, I'm just going to use Mailtrap. And Mailtrap is a really easy way. I've used it before on this video, on this channel, but it confused a lot of people last time. And so I wanted to just take a moment to explain exactly what it is before it confuses more people. So Mailtrap is available at mailtrap.io. And what this is a really easy way to send development emails. And what I mean by this is you would only use this in development. And what it does is it's a catch-all inbox for every outgoing email in your system. So let's say you've got a big, fancy, advanced Laravel application. You already have users in your database and something like that. And let's say you've got events firing, and when a certain event fires, it sends off emails to people. Well, you would hate for that email to actually go out to that person, that real-life customer, from your development server, because it's probably a fake, it doesn't mean anything. It was just for your testing purposes. What's great about having Mailtrap as your mail driver is that it actually will catch all of those emails. It puts them into one inbox, and then you can not only does it not send it out to the user, but then you can actually read the emails that are going out to the user and see if they look correct, if they're accurate, if they need changes. You can check the spam score of them and all that kind of stuff, but it actually collects all those emails and puts them into one place. And that's why I like Mailtrap. And you can go ahead and sign up. I recommend just signing up with your GitHub. That's what I do. And then with Mailtrap, you get one inbox at a time that you can set up for free, which is great. That's all I ever really need. And I'll show you guys how to do that. So when you first get started, you might not have any inboxes like I do here. So all you do is just make a new inbox, and you can always delete it when you're done with it. That's why I never need more than one at a time, because I just create one inbox for whatever I'm testing at the time, and then I'll just delete it. When I get to my next app, I just create another one. So in this case, let's make an inbox called Markdown, and we'll click Create Inbox. So now we have an inbox here. If you do have one of the paid versions, you can have multiple inboxes, but this is fine for now. So inside of this inbox, you can see that we don't have any emails yet, but this is eventually going to collect all the outgoing emails regardless of who they get sent to, which means we can also send them to dummy email addresses and they'll still come in here, which is great. And then you'll be able to read all the emails just like in your Gmail or something like that. They'll be viewable here, and you can see all of the mails to choose from here. So also, when you first open your inbox for the first time, you'll actually see your credentials that you need to put into Laravel. So by default, Laravel has already got Mailtrap figured out. It already knows the port. It uses the SMTP driver. So all that's set up. All you really need is your username and password. So let's just grab the username, And of course, this will be different for everybody. It's auto-generated for your inbox. But let's put the username here, and then let's go get the password like that, and then put the password there. And you can just leave encryption set to null for your development. You don't need it unless you're in production, but it's fine for Mailtrap. Okay, so that's all we need for our env. So now we have the ability to send emails out. Laravel's going to be able to send emails. Now let's go ahead and set up our mailable class to generate the email. We'll edit our view, and then we'll talk about how to send it. So we can close all this, and let's go to our terminal to generate our mail. So inside of our terminal, we're going to use an artisan command like we often do. We'll do php artisan make mail. Okay, and then we got to give it a few parameters here. So the first parameter here is going to be the name of the class the mailable class we want to generate. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call ours new user. We'll call it new user welcome email, okay? Because it's going to be the email that gets sent to the new user to welcome them to our service. So new user welcome, and that'll be the name of our mailable class. And then normally you could just click enter, and that will generate a normal mailable class that you can link to a Blade file. However, because we want to do Markdown, what makes it a little different is you just do a flag here called Markdown. So with Markdown, you tell it to configure the Blade file for Markdown. So we give it a location to put this Markdown email Blade file in. So what I like to do for our Blade file, and remember this is going to be inside of your views folder. So inside of our view folder, I like to make a folder called emails. And then usually I take the model, like user in this case, and put those into a folder. And then I'd have all the specific emails for the user model inside of here. So let's call it new user welcome. And then let's click enter. And oh, I must have had a problem with my env file. Let's look at our env file. Oh, I see, our Dusk app. Okay, so let's go ahead and put quotes around it like that for Dusk app. And sorry about that. Let's go back and generate our email again. So I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. Artisan make mail. The name of our mailable is new user welcome. Remember our flag -- markdown, and then the location to store our view file. Let's click enter. Now it was created successfully this time. And let's take a look at what it generated behind the scenes. So you should have two files that it created. The first is going to be your mailable. So you'll see under app, you have a new folder called mail where all your mailables are stored in. So inside of our mail, we have our new user welcome. And then inside of this file, you can see basically a basic boilerplate mailables class. So inside of here, the main function that actually sends the email is this build function. And you can see that all it does here is it says this markdown and then the location of the view file where it can get all the markdown. Okay, so this is where in this file is where we're gonna edit the markdown to customize the output to the user, okay, for the email. Now the big difference here is notice how it says markdown. This tells Laravel to use the markdown to actually render the markdown instead of using plain HTML. So if we did the other way to do it is view, and you can do this view, and this will just render a normal HTML Blade file. But if we do Markdown, then we get the best of both worlds, and we get kind of some HTML, we get Markdown, and we get Blade all put together, which makes it really, really nice. Okay, so this Markdown, and then emails users, new user welcome, and we can now look at this file and take a look at what it's generated just kind of from the get-go. So go to our resources views, and then inside of here, we have our emails, user, new user welcome. And this is the basic email that we get. So you can see here that the entire thing is a component. And we talked about components in, I don't know, part 3 or 4 of the series. I don't remember exactly. But in this series, we talked about components. And you can see that the Laravel Markdown is actually built on the concept of components. Because while Markdown's a really good way to edit and can like do rich text editing, it only really works with text, okay? When we start worrying about buttons and things like that, these aren't things that Markdown really supports, and so we use components to render those types of items. In fact, you can see our first button is actually a component right here, where we basically have, we grab the mail button, we can configure the URL that it goes to, and then we have the text is basically the default slot for the component. Okay, so you can see how all this comes full circle. All right. So let's go ahead and configure our email now. This is just going to be a new email that goes whenever. At this point, we're going to just click a button and it's going to send an email to ourselves for this video. But in the next video, it's actually going to be, it's going to welcome somebody back to your application, a brand new user. So when we generate a new user, it's going to send off an email to that user, welcoming them to your application. So let's go ahead and create it for them. So let's say welcome to Dusk, to the Dusk app or whatever. And then in the body, we'll just say the same thing. We'll say, thanks for signing up. We really appreciate it. Let us know if we can do more to please you. All right. And then we can actually do things like our Markdown. For example, if you guys are familiar with Markdown, you can use double asterisks to surround certain words. And everything inside the double asterisks will be bolded. If you do a single asterisk, it'll be on both sides, it'll be italics. So you can do whatever you want there. And of course, you can do underscores if you want instead of asterisks. So let's just put some in here. Let us, and then we'll do italics around this part, just so we can see how the Markdown works. Let's go ahead and configure our button. Let's say view my dashboard. Let's say that. View my dashboard to take you to the dashboard. And then the URL here, you can generate URLs dynamically, or we'll just hard code it for now. Let's just hard code it. It'll be dusk.dev/home, and that'll take us to our dashboard, okay? You can see here that it's pulling in our app.name as the in our configuration files. So if you wanted to customize that, you could do that. Just go into your config app, and then right here at the top, we'll call it Dusk, and that will automatically pull that in at the end here. So that's it for emails. And of course, you could keep customizing this. You could do different headings. You could do different things like that. This just uses basic Markdown, so I'll leave you guys to just figure that out on your own, since it's all something you guys are probably already familiar with. So that's it. Now that's everything we need to actually configure our emails. So we've got our view set up. We've got our mailable set up. Our mailable is set to just send off that email. So that's basically it. We can now just reference that and it will send off an email. Pretty easy, right? Let's go ahead and do it. So now to actually send the emails, let's go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to go into our application. We're going to create a button on the dashboard that they can click. And when they click the button, it's going to send them an email. And that's what we'll do in this video today. So let's do it. So inside of our resources, views, let's go to our home.blade because that's the dashboard. And then inside of the panel body right here, we'll just go ahead. Let's wrap this in a paragraph tag. And then let's go here and make a button. So we'll do href, and then let's go ahead and link it to a route. And then let's just name the route send email. We haven't created this route yet, but we'll make it here in just a second. So let's go send email like that. And that'll be the name of our route. And then let's give it a class of btn, btn block. These are just bootstrap classes, btn primary. And then let's give it a content of say send me an email. We'll just say send an email. Okay, so there we go. So now we should have a button inside of here that just gives us, that says send an email. It goes to this route, send email route. So let's go ahead and configure that. So we'll go into our routes, our web. Let's create one down here. It'll be we'll just do a basic get, and it will be email, and we'll have it go to our home controller just like this, and we'll have it go to an email function. Why do I have an error? Oh, it's because of this. Okay, and then let's give it the name, and the name will be send email, just like we used it inside of there. So now we created a send email route that goes to our this function, this email function inside of our home controller. So now we can go over and we will send the email from the controller. So let's go to our app, HTTP controllers, and home controller. And let's now go ahead and just make a new function. And this function will be called, I think it was just email, right? That's what we put in there. So just email. And then let's go ahead and just have this redirect when we're done. So we'll just have it redirect to /home. Okay, so what we'll do here is we're going to send the email, and then when it's done sending the email, it's just going to redirect us back to the home page. Okay, so let's go ahead and send the email. So how do we send the email? Well, we do need to pull in a few functions here. The first thing we'll want to do is pull in the mail facade so that we can access sending the mail and all the mail functions. The other thing we're going to want to do is we actually need to pull in this mailables class. Where is it? Mail, new user welcome. We need to pull this in as well. So let's go ahead and import this. So we're going to do app mail and new user welcome. And that'll be good. And then the last thing is, because what we're going to do is we're going to send the email to the currently logged in user. So we're going to get the auth facade as well so that we can use the auth facade to get the currently logged in user's email address. So let's go ahead and grab that as well, and that'll be it. So use auth, and that way we can use all the functions that come with the auth facade. Okay, so now down here, let's go ahead and send the email. So, we start off by actually using the mail function. So the mail object, and then we can go ahead and we can say to, and then we can tell it who to send the email to. In this case, we're going to get the currently logged in user. So let's use the auth facade, auth user, and this will get all the user's information. And then specifically, we need the email, their email address. Okay, so that tells it who to send to, and then we can tell it to send, and we tell it what to send. In this case, let's tell it to send new user welcome, and that's it. All right, so that will tell it here. We always need to do the new, so we're generating a new user welcome object. So we're telling it to send new user welcome, and that will go over to our new user welcome. It will render this. If we've got other stuff in the construct or anything like that, it'll go ahead and build that, and then it runs the build function, which then goes to our new user welcome markdown file in our routes or inside of our views. So it'll go down to resources, views, emails user, new user welcome, and then it will build this, and then it will shoot it off using mailables, and it will use all the mail functions that we have in there, all the configuration to send it to us. So that's basically it. That's all we need. Yeah, that should be everything. So let's go ahead and test that. So let's open up our browser. Let's log into dusk.dev. You can see if I click home or we log in, here we are, we're on our dashboard. It says you're logged in. We have our button that sends our email. Let's click it. Okay, now it clicked it. You saw it running up there at the top, and then it kind of flashed real quick. Remember that our function, it went to the /email page, and then it redirects back to this page. So we're gonna always see that loop. You'd probably want to create a notification or something, but we're not going to worry about that right now. This is good enough. So we would expect an email. So let's go back over to Mailtrap. You can see now we have this new email that came in a few seconds ago. New user welcome. You can say it's to alex@example.com, and you're wondering why is it sent to that? Well, it's because if I pull open our database real quick, the Dusk database, I'm logged in as this person. So my email address was alex@example.com. So it pulled that in dynamically and sent it to me, which is great. You can see that it comes from Dusk app at noreply@example.com. Remember, we configured all of that, which is cool. And then this is the email. So it pulled Dusk from our configuration file, our config.app. And then here's all of the markdown that we did. So you can see here that we've got the bold around this part. We've got the italics around this part. If we wanted more headings and stuff, we could have done that. And then we have view my dashboard, which we configured. We can click that and it takes us back here. Click it again, send another email. We now have another email, and you can see how that works, okay? So this is the default Laravel email, basically the email template that comes with Laravel. You can customize this as needed, but this is basically the default look of it that it comes with. But you can obviously customize it to whatever you need. If you take a look at the source here, you can see some of the power that comes behind the scenes. First of all, you can see how it's responsive, which is awesome. You can also see that everything inside of here is using tables. It's all inline styles. You can see all that here uses inline styles. So this is really, really cool how we can really work with this. You can see some of the power that Mailtrap has. But anyway, that's basically our app in a nutshell. You can see we sent the email. It really isn't that hard. I did a lot of talking. I know that's what I do, but I'm trying to show you guys so you understand how it works. But if I wasn't talking, you could see that all we did was do the PHP artisan command, we generated a new mailable. We had basically a default we had a default markdown view file that we could go in. We edited it really quick. It only took us, I don't know, less than a minute to edit the markdown to whatever content we wanted for our email. And then in our controller, we just did mail to the user that we want to send it to, and then send and tell it to render the mailable. And that's really all it was. So if I wasn't talking, it really would only take, 1, 2, 3 minutes basically to send off that email. And that's some of the stuff that makes this so easy. And I love working with Markdown just because you can set these things like headers and everything just really quickly. You just type it up. It's really easy to read. All the inline style happens on the Laravel side, but when you look in our view file, we don't have any of that garbage. It's just really easy to read what the email is going to say. So that's what's awesome about this. Now, like I mentioned, the next video is going to be the last video in our series about the Laravel 5.4 new features. And in that video, we're going to talk about events, specifically events of Eloquent objects. So when we generate a new Laravel new user, that basically is using Eloquent to create a new user in our database, and we can tie into events that are built into Laravel for those. And what we're going to do is whenever we generate a new user, we're going to tie into that new user event, and we're going to shoot off this email to welcome our user to the app. So I'm going to show you guys how to basically customize that a little bit further in the next video, and also how to use the last feature, which is new to Laravel 5.4, which is mapping Eloquent events to Eloquent object or to event objects. Okay, so I'll show you guys that in the last video, and that'll be the end of our series. Thanks so much for tuning in. Give us a thumbs up if you guys appreciated it. I love reading the comments and stuff like that too, so be sure to leave a comment below, and then like, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe as well. I'll see you guys in the next video, and that'll be the end of our series. See you then.